All right, who's ready to tackle our second week of Damn It, Neptune? Except this week we end with something a lot, shake 'em up with a full moon in Gemini. But yeah, we've got a strong square energy to deal with. Once again, get in position. We're going to surf the cosmic waves. And here is our influence chart. Now we're going to triangulate 2 times today in today's video. We're going to do the influence here. I'm going to show you where we've derived this antsy but hesitant energy, or the influence might be looking for guidance. We'll go through that and then talk about the dream bot, the collective unconscious, the astrology day by day, and then we're going to get into the triangulation of the solution. Probably my opinion, the most important part of these videos is at the end. It's talking about how we should behave, how we should consider acting out to get the maximum results in this energy. Okay, so with that is our summary slide for December 1st through the 7th, 2022. The tropical astrology, for the most part, hasn't changed a whole lot from last CIRF report, which means we have another T-square on Neptune. We have a mega square between our closest planets in Sagittarius, Sun, Venus, Mercury, square to this Neptune and then eventually Jupiter. So there's this massive sort of confusion, but also now with Jupiter and Neptune together, more of like a escapism addiction possible. So we got that to be concerned about. But then we end with, well, Mercury going into Capricorn and then the Gemini full moon. And that is conjunct Mars, like really conjunct Mars. So we get to talk about what all that means. And as we know, full moons can be quite confusing in their own right, and confusing energy, unpredictable type of energy. And then the collective unconscious sees a lot of freedom. You're going to really like this. And it really matches. So most of this I-Ching is talking about the T-square on Neptune, but there's another square still happening that's tightening, and it has what's called contraparallel. We'll go through that. And so it's extra conflicted is Uranus square Saturn. And that's actually tightening and has another aspect to it that makes it even more conflicted. And that's showing up in the collective unconscious. So the green circle, the dream bot, the collective unconscious is sort of on this other side. And then the I-Ching is mostly talking about the T-square, the full moon, the unpredictableness of that, the detriment that Mercury has. All these things are tricky, confusing, which makes us want to follow, which makes us look for guidance. So all in all, because we've got the Mars aspect that's really important on the full moon, we're going to have this need to move, especially in Gemini. Need to move. It's sort of antsy. It's sort of nervous. Not all that anxious per se, but just got to go be doing something. And but hesitant because what do I do? Neptune's showing us weird stuff that doesn't make any sense, makes you doubt yourself, makes you kind of divert into escapism, which is a place where we create more problems for ourselves, thinking that we're going to have more pleasure, but we don't. Maybe a little bit, or short-lived. All right. All in all, it's going to be a weird week energetically, confusing energetically, with unpredictableness at the end. Luckily, the only thing going for us is this Mercury going into Capricorn, so it gets undetrimented and gets into really practical matters and finally very rational again. And that's the same time as the moon goes into Gemini. So a lot of Gemini Mercury that are going to be kind of a saving grace, or actually helping and not continuing to add to the confusion. So we got that to look forward to. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And if you don't mind, go ahead and hit the up arrow and like, and thank you for all your shares. Last week we had our winner, Pam. It says Pam, but we know this is Terry with 9. That might be a record, Pam or Terry. I will watch this every day this coming week from the cave I'll be occupying. My weirdness will affect everyone, and I'll spare y'all. Apropos for your advice that I found rings true. You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Meet people where they are and lift them up without rolling in misery with them. Peace and love to the CIRF family. I give thanks for you all. Well, we thank you, Terry. Thanks for your comment, and thanks for all the comments. Very much appreciated all across the board. We're on BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube. Growing in all 3, but I'd say the fastest growing platform is Rumble. So welcome all you new Rumble people. Glad you're here. Hope that we can be of value. All right, here's the collective unconscious. It's a conglomeration of dream words. The top 2 words with good surge score is freedom movement. That's my top linguistics set, my only linguistics set at the very top, number 1 and 2. Freedom movement. That gave me chills, and the freedom to think, freedom to move and express is clearly outlined in these blue arrows. So that's the first meme, is just freedom to do all that, freedom to be yourself. And then time. It's a smaller meme with the red. There's only 4 red arrows, but they indicate time. So it's freedom time, according to the collective unconscious. Yes, I knew you'd like that. All right, let's get into December. This is the astrology chart. This is just our overview of both this coming week, that's signified by the two parallel lines that are up and down, kind of like goalposts. Let's darken this just a little. Okay, so overview. All of December, you'll have 2. We're going to start off the week with 3 retrograde planets. That's Neptune, Uranus, and Mars. And then at the end of this week, of this CIRF week, you're going to see Neptune going direct. And so that means there's 2 retrograde planets for most of December until Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th. Interesting too how, so right now Mercury and Venus are hand in hand in a conjunction, and Venus is going to speed up relative to Mercury, and they're going to go exact 29th, and the same day, boom, Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury, by the way, leaving Sagittarius this CIRF week towards the end and heading into Capricorn, getting much more rational, much more practical and goal-oriented. Venus, like we said, hand in hand with Mercury. So next CIRF week, Venus will be going into Capricorn. Let's see what else here. This is a really important one. This black horizontal line, this bar, indicates contraparallel. And contraparallel means they're exactly the equidistant from the sun's equator and path. And so what that means is extra conflicted. The contraparallel indicates conflicted, and that's between Saturn and Uranus. That's our protest alignment. That's our rebellious, the force that's keeping us the same is Saturn. Control, decline, hardship, challenge, versus rebellious Uranus, signifying freedom. That's where the collective unconscious is freedom. So it's on the Uranus side. But anyway, this challenge, this square, this pressure is going to get magnified most of this week, right? Because of the contraparallel. All right, what else? There's a lot of activity with the moons. So the full moon is going to be this week. That's in Gemini. That's on the 7th of December. And then obviously the 21st, that's where we have Sun going into Capricorn and for our winter solstice. So I'm looking forward to seeing the exact alignments for that one. And because shortly thereafter, we've got a new moon on the 23rd, and that's in Capricorn. So we're going to have the Sun and both Venus and Mercury in Capricorn. So we can expect that towards the time frame of Christmas on the 25th. And then the alignment with Mercury and Venus together on the 29th, Mercury going retrograde on the 29th. All right, let's come back to just this week. And there is a whole host of energies here. A lot of continued from last CIRF week. So this is Thursday, the 1st of December. There's that massive T-square on Neptune, but Moon is there as well. So it's a double T-square, very emotional. The emotions are very invested in everything Neptune. So emotionally invested in what Neptune is showing you. Might be images, might be total fantasy, might be urges to escape. And it might also be very Pisces things like connectedness to others and sort of your transcendent spiritually. But as we know, spiritualism can be an escape. Depends on why we're doing what we're doing, including, anything spiritual like praying or meditating or doing yoga or handing out cans to homeless people. Whatever it is you're doing for spirituality can be an escape. And so that becomes a focus area. Not that you should do or should not do any of those things. That's not the issue here. We're talking about what the influence is. So the influence to do those things, you really need to check whether or not you're escaping or doing a value-added activity for yourself or a little bit of a foreshadowing here for the group, for others. Big picture, we have a stellium in two places. We've got the Sagittarius and we've got the Pisces. And so massive amounts of pressure and conflict with these squares between Pisces and Sagittarius. So we can look at a lot of different archetypes here. So you can go like exploring versus sacrificing. So that's like, like curiosity versus being guilt tripped. As a feeling, you could go freedom, that's Sagittarius. Freedom versus idealism, that's Pisces. You could go optimism versus transcendence. And the similarity that we have between Pisces and Sagittarius is that spirituality, that higher level, but Pisces being a lot more of transcendence, being above it all. Sagittarius being more concerned about finding it. And so there's this spiritual pressure to be spiritual, pressure to find spirituality this week. And then again, that can be a form of escapism. So watch out for that. Then there's that hidden sextile opportunity between Saturn and Mercury and Venus. And so the decline or the reduction of thoughts, reduction of meaningful thought, of rational thought, reduction of communication, talking less, a limitation of love or bonding, or maybe a limitation and reduction in being able to relate to others, maybe a reduction in finance. There's an opportunity there, okay? And anytime we see a reduction or a kind of an implosion trend, that sort of scares us. But what I found in my experience over life, lost a lot, lost just about everything a couple of times. And what I realized, there's always There's always life. There's always an opportunity. There's always a silver lining in these hardships. And that's exactly what this opportunity here is. If you concentrate on just the pressure, and maybe you do everything in accordance with spiritual laws or your religious group, and it feels very good, still might be an escape and you're avoiding the opportunity. So might be related, might be able to find new heights and new spiritual spaces with this opportunity, but I'm not guaranteeing that. It's just combining those two together seems highly likely. Just a reminder then that Uranus is over here over the North Node in a retrograde to the North Node, and it's changing our material world as we head into the future. And this is important because what we're gonna talk about next is Uranus over the North Node, freedom into the future, freedom in our material world, changing, revolution, rebelliousness is squared to Saturn, the planet of keeping things the same and control and reduction and hardship and challenge. So that is interesting. We are going to talk about how they are contraparallel. So on Friday, the 2nd of December, this right here, this square is Uranus and Saturn. It's not just a square. So you can see they're only about 5 degrees off of the orb of square, of a perfect square, but they're also contraparallel that I mentioned before. So equal and opposite. And what that means is conflicted, magnified, conflicted. The square is conflicted anyway, and they're contraparallel, making it extra conflicted. So you're going to see an emphasis on protest. You're going to see a lot more of that, and it's going to be heated all week long, especially since people have this T-square on Neptune. And not that Neptune wants to fight or anything, but it's showing you illusion. This might be programming. This might be just completely false. Or it might be the way to get to those higher spiritual Pisces realms without escapism. It might be pure spirituality in Pisces, pure transcendence. And some of you will find that without escaping. So massive pressure on confusion. Massive pressure with confusion. These groups of squares is massive confusion in relation to thoughts, communication, and how you relate, and finance and money, and relationships, and love, and how you express your beauty. Confusion and all of that. So then Saturday the 3rd, still heavy on this square. So the emphasis is here, the pressure in relation to the confusion, but we've also added Jupiter now. So Jupiter conjunct Neptune is, Jupiter is optimism, so wanting to feel optimistic. Neptune could be escapism. So now we've got what could be like a really heavy influence into addiction, which sort of does match this Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury is sort of antsy anyway, and quick and agile, but wants to get things done, and he's in detriment. So it makes things hard about, I may just be impulsive, just go before I even think about doing it. So that creates an environment of easy escapism. But when you include Jupiter, it's much more like overly optimistic about what you can achieve from maybe a hit or a drug or alcohol. So we tend to overconsume those things in this alignment whenever you talk about Neptune and Jupiter together. At the same time, you might be seeing the positive side of this is positive, optimistic dreams. You might be able to see a positive future, even though in reality things just seem to be weird, obnoxious, out of normal, like a movie almost. So Jupiter is now added to the multi-square, as I mentioned, and that's hard to think and relate optimistically because Mercury and Venus are also square to Jupiter now. And so that becomes an issue. In addition, we have the Sun now that adds an opposition. Sun has now progressed enough to be within an 8-degree orb of Mars. So now we have a third opposition to Mars, which that means we have to balance in ego, whereas before we were just having to balance when we were, going to go do something, balancing with that thing I mentioned about Mercury, wanting to get stuff done, kind of antsy. And then, am I being beautiful? Am I representing my best self? Am I being peaceful? You have to balance that with the Mars and Gemini of just getting stuff done, quick projects. So we have to consider ego now when considering what to do. Just makes Mars more troublesome and getting things done a little bit more challenging. So you can see where the antsy but hesitant is coming in. And by the way, this hopefully the last time I talk about it, but all week, this Saturn and Uranus in a contraparallel. So be looking at protest, rebelliousness, rebelling. It's going to be there stronger this week. Sunday the 4th, Mercury is going to drop off the opposition to Mars. But Mercury still obviously in detriment in Sagittarius. So still challenged thinking, challenging to communicate, makes things a little bit harder to think about. We have a stellium here now in Taurus. So we're emotionally attached to future changes and changes to the material senses, material world, the way we sense the world. All those things are changing, and with the emotions there with it, brings a big focus on that. Monday the 5th. Okay, we got a lot going on down here in the parallel contraparallel. And this is the significant emotional spike of the rebellious conflict. So the emotions are with and they're parallel. So meaning that Uranus and Moon are together both azimuth and in vertical. And there just happened to both of these be contraparallel with Saturn. So it's extra intense. So the aspect of Uranus and North Node is extra intense on this day. This is Monday the 5th. And you're going to see this this yearning, a lot higher yearning, a lot more emotional emphasis on change, rebelliousness, freedom. And it has to have a villain because it's a square and it's contraparallel. Well, it's control, government, reduction, challenge, everything we talked about in Saturn. It's all intensified there on Monday. On Tuesday, the big news here is the big boost in mental aptitude. Just like I mentioned, this is where, look, Moon has just gone into Gemini. So emotions are much more rational. They too are versatile, but kind of on their toes and ready to go, ready to roll, wants to do things, antsy a little bit. And then Mercury going into Capricorn makes things a lot more goal-oriented and practical, but a heck a lot more rational because there's no detriment there anymore. That's the big news, but the square with Neptune and Jupiter are still there, so escapism is on high alert, fantasy and trickery. And then we end with, so we have just gotten a lot more Gemini Mercury, and then boom, the full moon. So now everybody's acting unpredictably in terms of all things Gemini, so the way we think. People will be acting unpredictably in how they think and how they behave, how they communicate to others. And short-term travel is another Gemini thing. And that happens at 16 degrees, 2 minutes of Gemini. That's the full moon. At 10:08 p.m. Central Standard Time in the U.S. And of course, that T-square on Neptune is still here. Neptune is conjunct with Jupiter, so it's a little tendency of being, again, more of the addiction, escapism there, risky behaviors. Focus on big chances. That's another archetype of the combo between Neptune and Jupiter is just taking much bigger risks. Risky. Because you don't know as much, or it's tricky. It's hard to be rational there inside Neptune's dreams and fantasies. So we have the T-square on the full moon, which makes it even tougher for an unpredictability. Now, when I said extra conjunct, here's what I mean. Mars and Moon are conjunct with only 5 minutes between them, and they are parallel, meaning they are in the same piece of sky. They are so close that you will probably not even be able to see Mars. I don't know for sure. Maybe that bright star might be, or not star, but planet of Mars might be able to be seen that close, but I'm doubting it. I'm looking forward to seeing that just to see if I'm right or not. But that'll be interesting. So close, 5 minutes away. Might even be behind the moon, but moon is pretty freaking bright, and that light might cast too much for Mars to be present, to be seen, visible. So exactly in the same piece of sky within 17 minutes in the vertical, and only 5 minutes in the azimuth. So anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say there. That's a big full moon, right? Extra intense with Mars. Extra unpredictable with the full moon. All right, let's get into the I-Ching. Take the darkening off of there, and we've got 17. There's a lot of change lines, and this equates to hexagram 17 in the I-Ching. It's called following, and it's the call to follow, the urge to follow, or lead. It's the continuum. It's not just following. It might be leading as well. You have followers if you're leading, but it's just the continuum of following. And it's the desire for order and hierarchy in human affairs. It's the desire for order. It's a desire for someone to lead us. It's a desire for guidance. You're looking for guidance. That was in our summary slide. Looking for guidance, or antsy but hesitant. Because antsy but hesitant is definitely that Mars conjunct moon in the full moon, as well as the T-square on Neptune. But the looking for guidance thing is all about the I-Ching. They can be related. Antsy but hesitant, we're looking for guidance. It's the same thing. And all these change lines are important, so we got to read them all, or at least briefly. Line 1 says, when a person of vision undertakes a challenge, he or she must sometimes change direction in the course of events. When these changes result from sincere communication with those of different opinions, good fortune will follow. So basically, line 1 is make sure you get a breadth of alternative views so you can get the big picture before you make a decision. Line 2 says if you have incompetent people around you, this may be the time to dismiss them or at least distance yourself from them. This is, as you're going to see, amazingly like apropos or directly poignant to the solution that we're going to talk about here just in a second. But it's culling your group. It's making sure you're in the right group. And how do you know that? Because they have similar values, the same vision. Be wary of associating only with the strong and powerful. Line 4 says, be wary of flatterers. Their influence is subtle, but can be destructive. If you're noticing flattery, then it's most effective with the immodest people with large egos. Just reminder, the sun or ego enters into a square with Neptune conjunct Jupiter. So if you fall into that, that's flattery, can be very easy to fall into. Line 5, perseverance furthers and good fortune follows. Basically, don't give up. Do not give up. And the solution, we're starting into the solution matrix, and we start with putting those change lines in, and we come up with hexagram 7, organized discipline. Now, think about these change lines and how similar this reads. The most successful leader is not the one who triumphs on the battlefield, but the one who is able, through strength of discipline and inner power, to achieve consolation without spilling blood. The most effective team marches with a single purpose, a dedication to a lofty goal that is held dear by all. Let power be held in check by the willing acceptance of a common discipline and the submission to a higher authority for the common good. Now, doesn't that sound a lot like what we talked about, the continuum of following? There's going to be a leader, there's going to be followers. It's just the continuum is the emphasis. If you hold or aspire to a position of leadership, remember that a true leader captures the heart of the people by articulating the clear vision that binds them together. And the other hidden point there is, if you don't have a group yet, find it. All right, we put our conversion chart in. You see the T-square here, but you see the full moon conjunct and extra parallel with Mars, extra intense with Mars. That's in hexagram 35 or gate 35 of the Rave Mandala of Human Design. And we see Sidereal Taurus. All these are going to be very much related, as you're going to see. So let's talk about the Rave 35. This is progress. By design, progress cannot exist in any vacuum and is dependent on interaction. How do you get interaction? That's other human beings. What's the best way to do that? Is to find your tribe. There's the tribe again. So the full moon is at 16 degrees 2 minutes. That's altruism. That's line 5. That's the sacrifice of personal for communal progress. The principles of interaction and harmony communicated successfully for the benefit of the whole. Progressive communication that can bring beneficial change to the whole. And then unfortunately, the downside of Jupiter in detriment says progressive communication, but always the sense that personal progress has been sacrificed. So, all right. And then line 6 is where Mars is. Mars is in the rectification of progress, the energy to correct, the process of crystallization coupled with ambition that assures timely and effective correction, progressive change that results from correction. This is really, really important to know, is that Mars is in the Rave mandala and the line that suggests Mars is having a tricky time figuring out what to do because it's got the T-square over to Neptune, right? So it takes a step out because he's in Gemini and quick acting, just got to have, just antsy, got to have something to do. And then you realize that you're escaping, or you realize that you're doing something that doesn't make any sense. So this line in Mars allows you to correct easily. All right. That's really beneficial to remember. All right. Ready for the solution slide? This video brought to you by Intervention Therapy. Provide a lot of cool services for you. Head to intervention.com and find out more. All right, there's our summary slide. And this little kid, if you can see his hands are, if this was a GIF, which is not, you'd see his hands going up and down, kind of like sort of agitated or pent up emotion or having to wait. That's the feeling here, antsy but hesitant. The overview of the energy. The entire week leads up to a full moon in Gemini conjunct Mars. Maybe feeling pent up, antsy, or just need to move. But T-square on Neptune conjunct Jupiter confuse things and befuddle right action. You will feel more confident and supported when you're in the right tribe. Nice segue to the solution. Remember that we've got the I-Ching 7, organized, discipline, common goal, strong leader, solidarity, and submission to a higher authority. And not just any authority, the authority that exudes your values, right? That's who you submit to. Rave mandala, progress cannot exist in a vacuum and is dependent on interaction. So we can't be going out this week alone and expecting good results. And then Taurus is deliberate and dependable. Let's see, when we combine all those together, here's what we get. The solution triangulation undoubtedly bounces directly off the influence and, lucky for Mars, implies forward movement. But the Yang movement is much more successful when not originating from a vacuum or from isolation. We're not a bunch of individuals this week. I mean, we can be, especially with Neptune. But the full moon conjunct Mars wants to get up and move. But the T-square on Neptune conjunct Jupiter make it easy to question what you're supposed to do and make it easy for you to go down rabbit holes that have no meaning whatsoever, and escapism and addiction. That's why the solution focuses on teamwork, interaction, dependability, integrity, leadership, common goals, etc. So, find your team, find your leader, submit to the right authority. Work hard. This is the very Taurus stuff. Work hard, be reliable, be dependable, and avoid being obstinate and stubborn. And here's some bonus points. The rave indicates that when you fit into your group properly, there may be a need for a personal sacrifice for the betterment of the group. So some of the things that I'm going to be reiterating this week, and you're invited to do that or make up your own, but I encourage you to talk more about the group that you're embedded in. So I recommend saying something like, I synergize with my group, I rely on my group, I am reliable and dependable to my tribe. And so the biggest thing, the biggest key this week is to not give yourself the illusion that you can do it all yourself. We do have interconnectivity. We do have some very tricky alignments, extra intense conflict this week. And so it's much, much more successful, much better to find your tribe, the ones that exudes your value sets, and embed yourself into that. Sacrifice into that tribe, submit to that higher authority of that group, and I think you'll find a lot more reasonable action, right action. I think you're going to find more hints of what right action is when you're embedded in the group this week. And as you know, we've had our weeks of being alone and being individual and doing your own thing. So we have those weeks in the CIRF report. This one is absolutely triangulated towards and emphasizes, hey, don't do it alone, right? Whew. All right, as the world gets even crazier, thank you, Neptune. We got to do this together. Where we go one, we go all. You all take care, be beneficial to humanity in accordance with your value sets. And we will see you for another CIRF report next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here.